Hey guys, welcome to a very exciting Sunday. This game was played in the Fall Invitationals which happened in the previous week, and the game is being played between Abhimanyu Mishra and a grandmaster named Oliver Barbosa. The reason why I selected this game for an exciting Sunday game was because Abhimanyu Mishra is just 10 years old, to be very specific 10 years, 9 months and 3 days, and he has already become an international master, and he is the youngest ever international master who his origins are Indian, but he lives in New Jersey in the United States. This tournament had 9 games each, so Abhimanyu played 9 games and he drew all the games, which basically means he ended up with 4.5 points out of 9 possible points and gained 14.5 points in the ELO rating, so his ratings increased, which is why he became the youngest international master. And it's pretty amazing what this guy has achieved in just 10 years of age. So what were you guys doing when you were 10 years old? It's pretty crazy, and let's just get into the game. I have analyzed 5 of his games, but I felt this was the best one to show because he had a slightly worse position, and even in that position he managed to come out and draw the game. So pretty exciting. Let's just get into it. Abhimanyu has the white pieces, and Oliver Barbosa, who also is a grandmaster, has the black pieces. We have e4 as an opening. And now d5. E takes d5, immediately relieving the center, and queen takes d5. You have knight to c3, attacking the queen, and queen to d6. And in this position, this queen to d6 has now become a modern variation, because usually queen back to this d8 used to be played in the previous games. But this is a Scandinavian defense, and these days a lot of grandmasters have started playing queen to d6 because they don't really want to go back all the way. They want the queen to put some pressure on this h2 pawn, and once depending on how the game goes, if the bishop develops to this wonderful e5 square, you can try to create some attacks on the h file. Also, you don't really have to push it all the way back. So it's a good idea to put this queen on d6, and there are a lot of variations which I'm not going to get into right now, but I just told you the basics of what the reason for putting this queen here on d6 is. Anyways, we have d4, and now knight to f6. Developing move. You have bishop to c4, developing the bishop as well, and now a6, simply forwarding, and the next idea is probably put the b pawn on b5 and attack this bishop. You have knight to f3, developing the knight, and again b5, attacking the bishop, so bishop to b3, simply retreating, and it's completely fine. You have e6, closing down this bishop's diagonal, and now this bishop is kind of staring at this pawn, which is nicely defended by the f pawn, so this bishop is kind of useless here for now, but we'll see. We have queen to e2, and it's a pretty weird move to put your queen here in front of the king like this. Usually people castle, but what Abhimanyu thought was what black is going to play is he was going to push the c pawn to c5. So once there is captures on the c file, then the queen will be hanging. Not really hanging, but the queen will be exchanged off, and this the black will be completely fine here. White will lose all the development. You have to capture it with your knight, because you still want to castle kingside and you don't really want to give up the castling rights. So, which is why he played this queen to e2 move. Pretty clever. And that's how international masters play these days, so pretty amazing guy. And we have bishop to b7, putting this bishop on a wonderful diagonal. Now we have bishop to e3. It's a completely fine move, it's not a mistake or anything, but this kind of gives up a little advantage that, that white had. Mainly the bishop doesn't belong here on e3. It belongs on g5, so that's what should have been played, putting an attack or some pressure against this knight. And of course, once the bishop is developed, You can capture on this knight, and you can even get bishop captures, which is again completely fine. You don't really have much of an attack. Black doesn't really have an attack once you capture this knight, so it's completely fine. But anyways, he plays bishop to e3, which is a kind of a slow move, and this was not played in the game. We have, after bishop to e3, we simply have knight to b to d7. But if you go back a position and ask what is a good move to play in this position instead of playing bishop to e3, simply castles would be completely fine. And we have knight b to d7. We get castles, finally castles, but this is kind of a slower move. It's fine. He's pretty young, so he will develop later on. This is a fine play by him. We have bishop to e7 and now h3. Again, a slow move, not allowing any of the pieces to come to this key g4 square, blocking this knight. And we have castles by black, and now rook a to d1, simply putting this rook on a nice defense. And now his plan is definitely to push this d pawn to d5. So we have c5, and pretty amazing. We have d takes c5. You have to take, because then it's possible that this pawn could be pushed and then your bishop will be stuck. So we have queen to c7, and this is completely fine position, because now you are double attacking this pawn. You are also attacking this knight here. Your rooks are nicely connected as black. You have a very active knight, or actually that can soon be activated knight. Knight can go to this e4 or even to h5 and then re-maneuver itself to wherever it wants, and it will be a completely fine position for black. So we have bishop to d4, and again he made one move with the bishop, a second move with the bishop, and now bishop takes c5. You have bishop takes c5, so another move with the bishop, and now knight takes c5. And if you look at this position, any grandmaster would take black, mainly because of the positions that the pieces are in. Even though white has a fine position, but black is currently active and it's attacking a lot of key squares, and also it has pretty nice structure here. But this white, on the other hand, the bishop is completely stuck. I mean, it cannot really go anywhere. None of the squares are available for the bishop. Not this one. None of these squares are available for the bishop, so you have to move one of the pieces. And if you want to move this c-pawn, you have to first get rid of this, push this knight away, and then again you have to bring your bishop back. So it's kind of a tricky position, and you will lose some of the moves in trying to activate the bishop. So it's basically a bad bishop, which is why any grandmaster would choose black in this position. We have queen to e3, and now simply rook f to d8. We have a3, and if you ask in this position why didn't black simply capture the bishop, it's mainly because the bishop is not really doing anything, so it would be pointless to capture the bishop. Once you allow the bishop to activate, then you can definitely bring your light square bishop and trade it for this light square bishop. But in this position, you don't really want to give up your wonderful knight for this bishop that's not really doing anything, which is why the Grandmaster Oliver decided not to give up the knight for a bishop and allow this bishop to make a few more moves. Because it doesn't really have anything, you have to make a few more moves in order to activate it. So you have queen to c6, and now rook to d4, and now simply rook takes d4, queen takes d4, and this is something that I want you guys to understand, is how grandmasters make these moves. See, Grandmaster could have immediately, back in this position, Grandmaster could have captured this rook if he wanted to. But he did not, mainly because then you simply get the second rook that comes over here. You can put your rook here, and the queen was kind of here on c7, so it would be completely fine. But he did not do this because he waited white to move, and he waited white to waste a move, which he did by playing rook to d4, and now he captured rook takes d4, and now queen takes d4. So you are basically giving up the d file, but you have asked the rook to waste a couple of moves. And this is how grandmasters play, so you have to think like that. And now queen to c7. Simply going back, now the plan is to put the rook here and simply control this d file. So we have queen to e3. Great, amazing 10-year-old Abhimanyu Mishra realizes the plan, and he plays queen to e3, getting the queen out of the way. Rook to d8, rook to d1. Now rook takes d1, knight takes d1, and now king to f8. Simply a wonderful position for black, because now the king is trying to activate itself. And look at this knight. This knight is stuck here. Now you have to first move this pawn forward, get some captures going. Only then can you move the knight, and all of these pieces are active. So you have knight to c3. Again, not really going for the pawn pushing, but he wants to, not that way, pawn pushing, but he wants to put his knight as close to the action as possible. And we have queen to c6. Now we have queen to d4, and simply king to e8, getting the king even closer into the game. We have king to 8, we have bishop to a2, and simply knight c to d7. We have bishop to b3, again repeating the moves, knight to c5, and now bishop to a2, trying or hoping to get a draw by 3-4 repetition. So if you move this knight back to this position, and white will again go with the bishop to b3, it will be a 3-4 repetition draw. But Oliver realizes and senses a slight hesitation from Abhimanyu in order to continue the game. So he realizes that maybe he's a 10-year-old, so you can put some pressure on this kid, and he plays king to e7, not allowing for the 3-4 repetition. And you have knight to d1. Again, if you go back a couple of moves, the knight was from d1, it went to c3, now it has come back to d1, and now the idea is obviously pushing this pawn forward, trying to activate your bishop. So you have queen to d6, simply trying to get the queens off the board, and Abhimanyu obliges because he's like, sure, as long as I don't have a lot of pieces on the board, I can definitely push for a draw, especially playing against a grandmaster. If the grandmaster is offering you the queen as an exchange and you are down in the position, you should definitely accept it. So queen takes d6, king takes d6, but in this position, if you look at the king, it's very close to the center, and white's king is stuck here on g1. So this king has more potential than the white's king. So always remember this, in an endgame it's always better to have your king in the center. Now we have knight to d2, knight f to e4, and simply knight takes e4 with a check. Again, he wanted to get as many pieces as possible off the board, which is why he went in for the kill and he played knight takes e4. It would have been better if he would have played knight to f1 instead, because this keeps some advantage going, and you simply have a lot of pieces that you can attack the centralized king. If you don't have many pieces, then the centralized king can become dominant and could be a losing move, or you could lose the endgame. But none of that happened, and after knight takes e4, you simply have bishop takes e4, and now c4, finally trying to activate the bishop. You have b takes c4. Now bishop takes c4, finally this bishop is activated, but it's too late in the game because you cannot really get any advantage out of this. Anyways, the continuation is bishop to d3, and now you even have bishop takes d3, knight takes d3, and now king to f1. A simple idea of GM Oliver was he realized that Abhimanyu is trying to get as many pieces off the board as possible, and he said, fine, that's exactly what I want, because as of now my king is centralized and I think I can push for a win. But we'll see. We have king to d5, king to e2, and now king to d4. Trying to get the king as close to the game as possible. Now you simply have king to d2, you have f5, and now f3. Now g6, and even b3, not allowing any exchanges to happen on the square, but knight to c5, simply attacking the pawn, making sure that it's pushed even forward, so you have b4, which is completely fine. He was just playing slow, and when he played b3, it would have been fine if he would have played b4 as well, not allowing this knight to go to the c5 square. But it's fine. He's just 10-year-old kid, so you have to be patient with him. After b4, you have knight to d3, and now knight to e3. You have knight to e5, some remaneuvering with the knight, and now simply knight to c2 with a check. King to c4, a4, and now knight to c6. Again, attacking this piece twice. Now you get b5. You have a takes b5, knight to a3 with a check first, king to b4, and a takes b5. Even though this is leading towards a draw, there was a quicker draw that could have been assured by Abhimanyu Mishra, but he couldn't really calculate everything, and the move that he should have played was knight takes b5 instead. Now supporting this knight with the pawn, and after you get king takes a5, you can go knight to c7, attack this pawn. After e5 is played, you can simply play king to c3, not allowing this king to come any closer into the game, and you can make sure that you end up with a draw. But nonetheless, I mean, this a takes b5 is completely fine, and you have knight to d8. Actually, in the post-match interview, Abhimanyu said that he actually missed this move. He thought that this knight would probably go here to e5, and then I'm going to show you that variation. If knight to e5 would have been played, then knight to c2 with a check, king takes b5, and simply knight to d4, and this is a check, and you can win this e-pawn. So you won't be down a pawn, and this was his idea. But he kind of missed this knight to d8 move, which is a wonderful move, simply defending this piece here, and it's completely fine. And here again, simply you have knight to c2 with a check. You have king takes b5, f4, and this is again a completely drawn position. So Abhimanyu was able to hold on to this position. You have king to c5 and simply king to e3, getting closer with the king. Now you have knight to c6 and knight to e1. This is definitely heading for a draw. And now you simply get knight to b4. You have g3, and now knight to d5 with a check, king to d3, knight to f6, and now king to e3. You have knight to e4. Again, attacking this pawn, and you simply get knight to d3 with a check. You have king to d5, and now king to f3, supporting this pawn, not allowing any captures. You get knight to d2 with a check, king to e2, and now knight to c4, king to f2, and this is a completely drawn position with a slight advantage for black, but that's not enough to convert it on a board without having any engines to support you. You have h6 and h4, preventing any pushing of this g5 pawn to g5. You have knight to d6. Now you simply get knight to b4 with a check, king to e4, knight to a6, and now knight to b7. This knight wants to go to c7, knight to c7, now attacking this pawn. And you simply have to play knight to c5, defending the pawn. You have king to e2 and simply e5, now pushing the pawn even further. F takes e5, king takes e5, and now king to f3. supporting this pawn as well. Now this king is not really going anywhere. Now you have knight to e6, knight to b5, and now g5. H takes g5, h takes g5, and now king to e3. You have knight to c5, again knight to d4, knight to e4, knight to f3 with a check, king to d5, and a lot of moves here by the knight, but both players don't really have an option and they have to keep pushing for, well, Abhimanyu is pushing for a draw and Oliver is pushing to get some advantage. But both players realized, and there is nothing to do here. It was possible that this game would have ended in this position if both players would have agreed for a draw, but both players saw what was going to happen next and they decided to play it out instead. You have knight takes g5, giving up your knight. That's completely fine. I mean, you have knight takes g5, you simply play king to f4, and now you attack both of these pieces. You can only defend one of those pieces, and the knight to e4 was played. After king takes f5, knight takes g3 was played, and this is a draw by insufficient material. And Abhimanyu Mishra played a very amazing and precise chess to draw this game and became the youngest international master at the age of 10 years, 9 months and 3 days, which is close to 3 weeks, 3 weeks younger than Pragnananda, who is from India. So pretty amazing chess that was played by Abhimanyu Mishra, and I'll definitely be covering a lot of his games in the future. But for now, I would like to thank all my subscribers for subscribing to the channel. I greatly appreciate it. I hope all of you are enjoying this Sunday. That's it from the video. Namaste. See you next time.